Hello and welcome to Confronting Diversity, Grabbing Your Bias by the Roots. We're thrilled you could join us today. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Yewande Ige from ThoughtWorks. Please join me in welcoming Yewande to the stage.
All right, thank you so much. I told them I didn't need a stage this high. I'm good with the elevation, but I couldn't do anything about it. Thank you so much for joining me. This is definitely a feel-good moment here, talking about diversity in a room full of talented recruitment specialists. Although it does make me feel bad because I'm going to begin by offending all of you. So, yeah, you know. You are wired. You are wired to discriminate. It's just who you are. Now, for some, that might not be news. I see a few smiles. But for others, that might seem awfully rude of me. But please, bear with me. I promise I'll explain. We get to blame much of this on our primitive ancestors, like most things in life. It's either primitive Dave or parents. But part of man's wiring early on required a really clear sense of them and us. And for most part, this was about evaluating strange things coming towards them and determining who made it into the cave and who didn't. And so while we're no longer in caves, that wiring, that trait, is still a part of who we are. Them and us is a recognized in-group, out-group cognitive bias that we all have. It essentially means we favor people that are part of groups to which we belong. Groups based on our gender, our ethnicity, our race, religion, networks, associations, alma maters. We extend greater trust, greater cooperation, and regard to people we consider in-group members compared to those on the outside. Now, this is not too much of a big deal when we're talking about, say, who we instinctively will sit next to on a flight that offers open seating, say. Shout out to Southwest. I flew Southwest to Nashville, and I swear, watching people with that C boarding pass is a social experiment in itself. Don't make eye contact. But the bias gets a little bit more concerning when we think about the implications of it on hiring decisions, opportunities for promotion that do rely heavily on networking within an organization, opportunities for mentorship, promotions, referral pipelines. Who do you know? You refer people like yourselves. And this selection is going on spontaneously. For most people, most of the time, it's beneath the surface on autopilot, but it gets hardwired. It's primed by a lifetime of social learning and cultural cues, and without proper attention, guides a lot of our behavior. We see this in the technology industry. Well-intentioned companies are investing millions into diversity initiatives, boot camps, training programs, sponsorship. Yet there's still a clear homogeneity across the board. There's a clear in-group bias. And so is this wiring stronger than all of those good intentions? And if so, what is strong enough to combat this biology of bias I'm suggesting is at play here? Action. Action. I'm not talking about huge save the world, I don't know what that means, save the world, huge save the world type action, which is definitely important and absolutely necessary. But here I'm talking about the small, individualized action of understanding. Gaining understanding of the diversity that is around all of us is what enables ThoughtWorks to be a more diverse and inclusive organization. The Anita Borg Institute recognized ThoughtWorks as the top company in America for women technologists in 2016, and fingers crossed for 2017. With almost 60% female representation in our entry-level engineering roles alone, and 30% female representation in our technology leadership, we almost double the industry average. And while we still have a long way to go, I wanted to come and share how we've got here, how we've achieved this. And so as I got to thinking, ThoughtWorks and kind of where we've come from, there were really 4 stages in my mind of what set the stage, and I called them 4 stages of understanding. Being courageous, being open, being uncomfortable, and being committed to learning. Can you imagine a consulting company willing to walk away from a brand new client, a long-term revenue opportunity, solely because that client refused to address the sexual harassment that was experiencing from that client side by female consultants? Or what about this? A technology company that decides to open an office in South Africa, but rather than choose the more affluent capital, decides to open an office in a less developed, more rural area, so as to provide economic advancement opportunities for more marginalized groups. Well, I can, because we did. 10 years ago, the founder and leaders of ThoughtWorks determined that we would be a company that stood up and spoke out. Our mission, our vision, our people, our investments would speak to their courage to stand up for what they believed would help create a more fair and inclusive world. But courage is not just about the one who will stand up and speak up. It's also about the person who's willing to sit down and listen. Now, just by show of hands, can anybody tell me what coercion to the biosocial mean means? Coercion to the biosocial mean. Yeah, I had no idea what it meant either. No judgment. Nope, had no idea. But I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially means the pressure people feel to not deviate from societal expectations of roles. In technology, women aren't really supposed to be engineers. They're supposed to be BAs because we like to talk. Diversity can be complex. Many of us are not always willing to admit that we don't always understand the complexity. And so people kind of charge ahead, forging solutions, sponsoring ladies who code over lunch while brunching and coding. We equate alliance and understanding. And so, if anybody knew I had no idea what this meant, they would think I was a racist misogynist. But once we accept that imperfect understanding is a condition of a humanity, there's no shame in not knowing everything or not understanding it all. The only shame is not having the courage to do something about it. Author Peter Drucker has a quote that I really enjoy. He says, "Whenever you see success, someone once made a courageous decision." So courage to stand up and speak out, as well as being willing to sit down and listen, will create a diverse and inclusive organization. Courage is also needed to be open. If you were to interview at ThoughtWorks, and I mean after this amazing performance, resumes here, please. If you were to interview with us, whether you are a sourcer, a recruiter, an engineer, a receptionist, or the VP of sales, you would be asked this question: how willing are you to be wrong about your opinion on the world? How willing are you to be wrong on your opinion on the world? Okay, equal amount of confusion, perfect. You can't create a diverse and inclusive organization if people have already made up their minds about the world and people in it. When you as a recruiter are interviewing a candidate, you want to know about their experiences, their history, their skills. You want to know as much about what they've done as what they're willing to learn and continue to keep growing. And the information they share will tell you a lot about how likely they are to be successful in your organization. To create a culture of understanding, you have to have people who are willing to have their assumptions and perceptions about the world, society, and their place in it challenged and possibly changed. This is a conversation we have with every single candidate. It unnerves any intolerance someone might have that would go against the type of culture we want to create. It also unnerves any passions and experiences around social and economic justice that would enrich our organization and help us find role models. And it's not about ensuring everybody thinks the same way or has the same viewpoint. It's about setting the expectation of everyone that's within your organization. Respect and empathy. No tolerance for intolerance. Add to that creative, innovative, strategic. These are the qualities we want in everyone we hire. Open people will create a diverse and inclusive organization. Open people will also be willing to be uncomfortable. At a company retreat in Chicago, we had author Jeremiah Wright give a really insightful talk about the history of ebonics and race in America. This talk sparked a conversation among us, and one of our tech leads, Salim, stands up. And he shares, in a group setting like this, he shares with us his experiences and the pressure that he's felt to assimilate. As he's talking, he switches his accent. Thought he had a Midwest accent, but he reveals his deep Indian, South Indian heritage, and he shares with us how he wishes he could come and be authentic and be an example to his children what it means to be authentic. Creating a diverse and inclusive organization requires everybody be okay, being a little bit uncomfortable. Privilege, racial profiling, transgender identity, gender pay gaps, glass ceilings, working parents, intersectionality. You can't be a diverse organization without really talking about diversity. That conversation from our retreat has always stayed with me. Not only was it an incredibly raw and emotional conversation, but it really showed me what happens when we remove the perception of what divides us and really see life through someone else's lens. I mean, what does an Indian man have in common with me? Turns out quite a bit. And so what starts off as an uncomfortable conversation soon becomes an opportunity for people to really learn from each other. Judgment is replaced with curiosity, and curiosity gives rise to empathy. And so this is an everyday part of what we do. We have amazing diversity speakers and leaders and just great people. Kimberly Bryan, Ariel Vogesine, Eddie Conway, coming to our office and having conversations. And these conversations spark more conversations among us, and people start taking grassroots action and initiatives, inviting interest groups to share our workspace. We do pro bono work for nonprofits like Code Pink, Democracy Now!, UNICEF. Alliances and partnerships are formed with groups that really care and are passionate about the things that our people are passionate about. Our leadership team has their face-to-face meetings in locations like Ferguson, Missouri, so as to gain a perspective and an understanding of things that are happening around all of us. The culture and attitude that is cultivated is one of solidarity over charity. Unfortunately today, I think too many diversity initiatives feel like charity. There's a saying by Benjamin Franklin, which I really appreciate, and he says, "The lack of diversity and inclusivity will not change until those unaffected by it are as equally outraged, concerned, or just plain aware as those who are." When I'm in an interview debrief and a man tells me that he has serious concerns about a candidate, not because of a technical deficiency, but because that candidate directed all their questions and responses to him and ignored the woman he was pairing with, he completely embodies what Benjamin Franklin was saying. Uncomfortable conversations will create a diverse and inclusive organization. And so there's really no way that we would have gotten to where we are today without learning to grasp things at the root. Angela Davis actually describes radical in this way. She says, radical is just simply grasping things at the root. And so that's what we did. We ensure our interview panels are diverse. People interview with people that look like them, even if it means flying people in. Although today we kind of have those iPads on wheels, perfect amount of creepy and geeky. We have our senior leaders, they're paired, a lot of their roles are paired to ensure a diversity of perspective in leadership. We've changed enhanced our benefits a few times over to include transgender healthcare services, adoption, surrogacy. We've hired developers that are self-taught, that have no formal education, let alone Ivy League, but demonstrated exceptional aptitude and integrity. We found transferable skills in nurses, designers, a zoologist major. Turns out it's not just about petting pandas. We removed privilege as a hiring criteria. A lot of hiring managers in the tech space will, want people that have spoken at conferences and meetups and have these extensive GitHub repos. But when women and minorities are marginalized from these communities, it becomes a criteria based on privilege and not necessarily talent. And so we kept pushing and challenging ourselves to be courageous, live our values, and address historical discrimination. And we hired some amazing people as a result. Did it all go well? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, no, no. In 2012, ThoughtWorks was considered the most difficult interview to take, according to the Business Insider. They gave an example of the type of question that you'd be asked if you interviewed with us. How do you get more women into IT? Yes, super proud of that. But if any of you have children or just know small people and they're described as difficult, it's never a good thing. It's not, no. And so our learning here was like, man, we got to address this. We had to gain more understanding and create more transparency in our process. Show people what we were trying to achieve with our process, so it demystified it a little bit. One of our really brilliant male leaders, I would go as far as calling him a male feminist. He introduces a new hire to the team. Hey, everyone, this is Tracy, one of our black developers. Faceplant emoji, faceplant emoji, faceplant emoji. No, God, no. No. We absolutely wanted to be proud of our diversity, but we didn't want to make people feel like that's why they were being hired. And so our learning there was that we had to gain some more understanding. We sat down with Black thought workers and others and kind of learned what we should say and what we shouldn't. And we had to make adjustments. In 2011, we opened one of our first offices in South America. We ramped up really quickly and hired some amazing people. But about a year or so in, we started to hear reports of not nice behavior and chauvinistic attitudes. And so we had to do a deep dive into cultural alignment, and we found that we'd hired people that were not respectful and not empathetic. And so we had to let people go who were going to be detrimental to the culture and not open to change. We also had to look at our interview process and see where we had kind of missed it a little bit. And so our learning there was that you have to keep your hands on the steering wheel, otherwise you will veer off course. But if you do, course correct immediately. And so we've not got it all right. We've not got it all right all the time, but it takes courage to keep going, even when you don't. One of my favorite quotes on change is the one where it says, change is hard at the start, messy in the middle, but gorgeous at the end. We're definitely not at the end. We're probably somewhere between messy-ish and less messy. But what we do have, what ThoughtWorks does have today, is a truly authentic culture, one that is self-sustaining in its pursuit of diversity and inclusivity. A commitment to learning will create a diverse and inclusive organization. And so that's kind of how we did it. It's a short story. That's what we did. We still have a long way to go, and we want to keep on learning. Knowing is not the same as understanding. We know stuff. We understand less. Knowing is just information. There's a lot of information out there. Understanding means that you think and behave differently because of what you now know. We are wired to have strong inclination for people like ourselves. There is a them and there is an us. History and society plays a huge part in reinforcing those selections, and meritocracy promotes privilege, not necessarily fairness. And so if the people within your organization are indifferent or ignorant to this, pipelining for diversity will only have so much effect. Diversity hiring isn't a singular, exclusive effort of a diversity recruiter on your team. Sure, you can go after that woman of color at a HBU school. That would be your diverse hire. But it is everybody else that you bring into the organization that will determine if your organization is inclusive. Diversity hiring is everybody hiring. And so there are no shortcuts in this, but it can start today. I think one of the biggest deterrents beyond the whole biology is this sense that it's just too hard and difficult to do. But it doesn't have to be. You deciding today to kind of put your hand up and gain your own understanding, saying, look, I don't understand it all, but I'm willing to get beneath the surface. Because the roots of inequality in diversity are deep and they are complex, and therefore our solutions do have to address that, not reduce it to a change program. Because you can't change what's going on around you until you change what's going on within you. And so if you're open, I'd love to start now. Thank you. And so one of the things that I absolutely love about coming to LinkedIn, it's not just about sitting here and having a one-way conversation, but to actually see if we could get together in groups and really have a conversation. I know how hard it is just to kind of grab people and network, but if you would be up for it, I would love for us to just get together in just small groups and just kind of find out what we're all doing around diversity within our organizations. I think this is a great way. You know, you're not going to stop and meet 50 people in the corridor necessarily, but if you would be open to just circling with some people that you don't work with, maybe spend about 5 minutes and just talk about either something that we've done that could be inspiring or something that you've already done that is really working. And then we can kind of come back and just share. Like this is meant to be a conversation. Would you be up for that? All right, all right. So like I said, no judgment on who you pick, in-group, out-group. Nope, not gonna look. No judgment. Pick whoever you feel good about, and we'll spend about 5 minutes having a conversation. The conversations are good. Okay, good. But I want you to share. Please don't stop doing this, but I just wanted you to share because I'd love to ensure that everybody just gets a little bit of everybody. So if anybody felt that they had some really great dialogue and wants to just share or ask a question, please come out. Like, you know, keep it going, but please come out and just share and just carry the conversation on. If everybody could go away on Monday just with a little something new, that would be amazing. So please, thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Hello. We had a great group. We didn't want to stop talking. We had a very diverse group in terms of roles, companies, large companies, small companies. We had some really interesting conversations about unconscious bias and also having uncomfortable conversations and how you work through it, and just how to bring hiring managers along and really thinking differently. Yeah. You know, we had an example of a hiring manager, a diverse hiring manager, who's still unconsciously, you know, raising their hand, very receptive to considering diverse candidates, but really not going down that path. So how do you break that cycle? Yeah. You know, and there are so many different things that, you know, we talked about in terms of that. But thank you.
Did you get something new?
Yes.
Awesome. All right.
Always.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Anybody else? Anything else somebody wants to just share and speak to cross-group, or just ask a question that somebody else might have a good idea about how to solve? Oh, hey, go for it.
So we had a great group. We actually talked about, is diversity just skin color, gender, or is there multiple layers to it? Do we peel the onion back? Is it skill sets? Do they come from a different agency or a different background, a different industry? And then how do you measure that?
Yeah.
How do you present on that and saying, hey, we are diverse because of X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
You can make people aware of it. Everybody's aware of it, right?
Yeah.
But how do you actually track it? How do you present on it when there's so many layers to the onion?
Yeah.
Of peeling that back? How do you? So we had a pretty good group, good discussion on kind of ideas and what we all do.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think how you define diversity within your organization is always going to be different. And at ThoughtWorks, we have spent time focusing on different elements, just because you could just kind of take it to so many different directions. And if you want to go deep, you kind of have to focus in for a little bit. So we kind of acknowledged that we were going to work on a few core focuses. And so women has been a big one for us for a long time, because it's a really big issue in technology. And even within women, there are more layers. So I think it's about deciding what you think is important, what your company wants to focus on, and recognizing that it's not just linear. Agreed. Thank you. Thank you for that. Awesome. Anybody else have anything they want to share? Any other insights? Okay. Well, that's great. So I just wanted to appreciate you guys. That's really it. Like I said, this is my first time having a conversation with more than just my mirror and my kids. So thank you for being really gracious. I swear it went much faster than I had anticipated. I'm sure I spoke way too fast, and hopefully you could understand. I tried to dictate and be very, very clear. So thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing, and I hope you guys got to connect with a few people and enjoy the rest of the conference. So thank you so much.